Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. Thanks for joining us this morning. We invite you, by the way, to join the conversation on Getter, Rumble, go into YouTube, check out the chat there as well. Time now to take the political pulse of America. The beat today, President Trump has been making some major upgrades to the White House, from a full Rose Garden renovation, installing huge new flagpoles, and now, of course, plans to build a ballroom. But do Americans support Trump's White House renovations? Well, according to the latest YouGov poll, there are some mixed reviews. 37% strongly disapprove. 10% say they somewhat disapprove of the changes. On the flip side, 14% strongly approve of the president's upgrades to the People's House, and 17% somewhat approve. Let's bring in Emily and Terrence. Guys, what do you think? Emily, we should point out, by the way, that the ballroom isn't going to cost taxpayers anything. It's going to run $200 million, but will be funded through a combination of donations, right, from President Trump and other private donors. So your take, Emily.
Yeah, I think I would be in the category of somewhat disapprove. I don't like change. I really love tradition. When I saw what he did to the Rose Garden, I was like, oh, that is so disappointing. But you know what? He's trying to leave behind a legacy. I mean, he's been adding a whole bunch of things to the White House, adding some gold here and there, giving it a little bit of a Mar-a-Lago vibe, I suppose. You know, like I said, somewhat disapprove, but it's just my opinion. You know, it's his house. He's living there.
Wait, can I follow? I'd like to follow up on that, if you don't mind.
There you go,
if you don't mind. You say somewhat disapprove. Why so? I'm just curious as to what you don't like about it.
Like I said, I just don't like change. I like upholding tradition.
But what about the actual, like, decor? So it's not about the decor, it's just about the change. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think we needed to put pavement down on the Rose Garden and tables and stuff. You know, that was where all the press conferences were. Brought out chairs for reporters. It's just going to look a little different moving forward.
Okay.
So I'm kind of on the fence about this as well. I don't approve, but I also don't disapprove. I think the benefit is it doesn't cost the American taxpayer anything. The fact that President Trump is quite literally invested in it himself, I think there's something to be said about that, and I'm sure it's probably going to be called the Trump Room or something like that. But the fact that he's investing in it himself and making sure that the American taxpayer doesn't have to pay it, I'm okay with that. I will also say this. I think there are many more important things that I'd like the president to focus on. And I do think that he's largely doing this. I just want to make sure that any project around the White House doesn't become a distraction, that it's just something that he can maybe pawn off on someone else. He can put out the idea. They handle that. I want the president to focus on running the country.
Yeah. Well, he's a builder, though. You know, I mean, it makes sense. I know why he's doing this. I get it. I also think he can he obviously can multitask. And this is personal for him, right? I mean, this is what he does for a living. So that's why we saw him on the roof the other day. And I like the flagpoles. There he is on the roof. I love the flagpoles. I think that's great. I think the ballroom is a really smart idea. We don't have any sort of majestic room to do anything really important in. And the Rose Garden's just okay. I'm kind of with Emily on that. I mean, you know, not so much because of the change aspect. I'm okay with change. I just think it looks a little, oh gosh, am I going to say it? A little too country club-ish, a little too Mar-a-Lago-ish. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, let's just say the quiet part out loud. I mean, one thing we have to be here is authentic. Let's just be ourselves and just say it, you know, and that's the truth. I've been in the Rose Garden. I've interviewed President Trump there, and it's just such a beautiful setting. And really now it's kind of like,
Well, it did make for a funny moment on the roof when he was looking at all of the renovations. So we got that out of it.
That's true. Yeah. Then again, I'm not a fashionista or a decorous, exceptional guy. Okay. Oh, do we want to take a look, by the way, at a live picture? I'm sorry. They told me that earlier, but I'm sorry. I had squirrel in the headlights there. There it is. The Brady room, the press briefing room, James Brady room, excuse me. President Trump will be there shortly. Caroline Leavitt will be there, but not speaking. It'll be President Trump speaking about Washington, D.C. and how he's going to clean things up. We're going to bring it to you. Let me look at the time. In about 21 minutes. It's coming. Don't worry. All right, changing gears now to the latest on those Texas Democrats who are still on the run. For an update, let's welcome to American Sunrise Texas State Representative Wes Virdell. Wes, give us the latest. I mean, I understand you're going to convene again today at the legislature with a special session. We have Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton asking the Texas Supreme Court, to remove some of these Democrats from office or give them like this 48-hour warning to return. So what are you hearing? What's the latest? Good morning to you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. So what I'm hearing right now is that the Democrats are still not going to return. Something to point out is we are paid by the day to be there. And the fact that they're not there is very disappointing. Any other job, if we don't show up for it, we get fired. I think that option should be on the table. And I think that they should start losing seniority also when they're not there.
So I hear you, and I realize that the sexy part of this story is that the redistricting bill is being held up. But I think the real grassroots, the real effect is that folks in those flooded areas there in Texas aren't getting the help that they need. These are communities that literally are trying to rebuild, and these Democrats going AWOL basically is holding up the relief for those folks. To me, that's the most egregious part of all of this. And again, I'm not a Texan, but from the outside looking in, just as a humanitarian, that's the most egregious part.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I actually, Kerrville is part of my district, and that's the county we lost over 100 people in that flood. And the fact that the Democrats aren't there to help us get the legislation passed. We need funding for those areas. We have massive infrastructure damage, and we need to deal with real regulation to see if we can help prevent something like this in the future. So the fact that they're not there for that is extremely disappointing.
And if I can just follow up on that really quickly, I'm sorry, Emily, but put into perspective what every day means to the folks there in Kerrville of not getting those resources, not getting that aid. Put into perspective for us so that we really can understand what not having that money, what not having that sort of legislation in place to help means for you guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hear it over and over again from people in there in Kerr County, which is that, they feel like they're being left in the dark right now because they need to rebuild their lives. They're waiting in limbo while we're waiting on the Democrats to return. So it's incredibly frustrating. And I hope my peers will show back up and do the job that we agreed to do, that we promised our constituents to do.
I do want to switch gears here for a moment here. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, she's been taking aim at Illinois lately, calling out Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson for what she describes as protecting dangerous, illegal migrant criminals. Noem says U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers have arrested criminals who would still be on the streets if Pritzker and Johnson had their way. Weigh in on this for a moment. What is your take?
Yeah, so it's not complicated to me. You look at the Democrats, there's hypocrisy running everywhere. One is it appears that they support illegal immigration, and two, they ran to a state where you actually have some of the worst redistricting ever done. So, gerrymandering is a problem, and they've done it in some of the worst places around.
So let me ask you this, Wes. How is this going to end in terms of the redistricting? I mean, Greg Abbott, the governor there, is saying, I'm going to call special session after special session. So ultimately, these Democrats are going to have to come back. And quite frankly, at this point, I'm sure their line to their constituents is, we're doing this for democracy, yada, yada, yada. But at some point, you got to appear in your district. And at that point, you got a civil arrest warrant or civil warrant out for your arrest. So how does this end exactly? How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what's going to happen is the governor's going to call another special session, and we're going to keep coming back. And the reality is a lot of us legislators are normal working class people. And so where I need to be at work, actually taking care of a business and helping my family and pay the bills, we're not there. And every day the Democrats are not there. They're not only hurting us, they're hurting themselves, and they're hurting the taxpayers who are paying tax dollars for this special session to be in session. But I think the governor's going to call another special session, and I think he will keep doing it until the Democrats return.
All right, I want to bring your attention to this. A big haul. ICE has arrested about 350 gang members in Houston. This is over the last 6 months or so. It happened in the first 6 months of the Trump administration, just for context. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers in Houston say they've arrested specifically 356 illegal foreign nationals who are confirmed gang members. That's combined with them being in this country illegally. The numbers, as you know, there in Texas are staggering. Can you see a difference as a lawmaker there in Texas, as someone who lives in a border state, when from the Trump administration coming into office and really being able to turn things around? Are you able to see a marked difference?
Just day to day, I can't see a difference right now, but you talk to
Okay.
a lot of other people. And so I live probably about 3 or 4 hours from the border, and I can't see a difference. I think we're seeing a difference some in the drivers. We have a real problem with people jumping in semi trucks that can't speak English and are from Mexico. And I think that we're seeing a decrease in that. But I appreciate ICE, and we need to keep getting every illegal immigrant out of here until we have no more in our country.
Absolutely. And over the past year, ICE has had 700% of an increase on the attacks on them as they've been going around and trying to do the Trump administration's work. Talk to us a little bit more about that, the challenges that ICE is facing and the support that they need.
Yeah. So those guys are having, unfortunately, they're being targeted. They're being doxing. The real issue here is we need to make sure that we are punishing those who are doxing the ICE agents. So, I don't particularly like ICE wearing masks. I think if we were in, let's say Joe Biden were still the president and he had agents wearing masks, we would have a problem with that. So there is concern about that. And what precedent do we set where public servants are wearing masks? I do have concern there. But back to it, I think that the real issue is that the people who are targeting ICE are not being punished the way they should. And we need to increase the penalties on them and make sure that they are fully aware there are consequences for what they're doing.
Absolutely. A lot of work to still be done. Representative Wes Virdell, thank you so much for your time and joining us on American Sunrise.
Thank you all for having me.
All right. We have so much more for you after the break. Stay with us.